There's a kind of quiet that only appears in the early morning when you live alone. The house sits still, the clock ticks a little louder than it used to, and the sunlight creeps across the floor like it's in no hurry to meet anyone. I've had mornings like that, when the coffee tastes a little flat, and I suddenly realize I've been living by myself long enough to forget when I last brushed my hair just because I felt like looking nice. It hits you in these small, unexpected moments. Not sadness exactly, but a soft awareness that solitude has been shaping your habits more than you realized. Living alone in your later years can be peaceful, sure, but the silence carries its own tricks. Researchers from places like Harvard and the NIH have been saying for years that long stretches of isolation can subtly nudge the mind toward depression, slower thinking, even forgetfulness. But this isn't a lecture about safety or medical checklists. This is about the hidden traps, the tiny things no one warns you about, the ones that slowly shrink your sense of self without ever making a sound. If you've ever wondered whether certain tiny habits are quietly shrinking your life, this talk is for you. Thing number 1, avoid making every meal a solo chore. A meal isn't just food, it's proof you still expect joy. I learned that the hard way after watching a good friend of mine, a man well into his 70s, slowly shrink his meals down to nothing more than crackers and soup straight from the can. He used to be a lively cook back when his wife was alive, but once he started living alone, he talked himself into believing effort wasn't worth it anymore. I've caught myself doing the same thing more times than I care to admit, telling myself it didn't matter what I ate because no one else was around to see it. But it does matter. It matters more than we think. Nutrition researchers in the U.S. have long noted that older adults living alone are more likely to undereat, skip protein, and drift into mild malnourishment without realizing it. But the deeper issue isn't just physical. It is emotional. Neglecting meals is often the first quiet sign that someone has stopped valuing their own presence. So treat meals like moments again. Use a real plate. Heat the soup. Put on some music. Light a candle if you want to. Create an atmosphere that tells you I'm still worth the effort. Even small rituals like that bring back a sense of dignity and rhythm to your day. Thing number 2, avoid letting TV become your roommate. Silence isn't the enemy. Avoiding it is. I remember a stretch of time when I kept the television running from sunrise until the moment I went to bed. I told myself it was background noise, just something to fill the house. The truth was simpler and heavier. I didn't want to hear my own thoughts. The quiet felt too big, too sharp around the edges, so I drowned it out with reruns and commercials. Many older Americans fall into the same pattern. It's easy to let the TV become a companion, a stand-in presence that asks nothing from you. But studies on passive screen time in older adults suggest that long hours of mindless viewing can slow mental engagement and reduce cognitive activity. Not because TV is bad, but because zoning out for too long replaces the meaningful mental stimulation your brain actually thrives on. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your favorite shows. The key is intention. Save your viewing for something you choose, not something you drift into. Schedule it the way you would an outing. Pick a film, a documentary, an episode you care about. Watch it, and then turn the TV off. Make TV an event, not your default companion. Once you reclaim the silence, you might find it isn't as empty as you feared. Thing number 3, avoid letting the front door become a wall. The world shrinks the moment your doorway does. I once had a neighbor, an older woman who lived alone, who rarely stepped outside anymore. One day, she told me she opened her front door just to let the air touch her face again, and she felt something she hadn't felt in months, the sense that life was still happening around her. That tiny act reminded her she wasn't invisible. It doesn't take much for someone living alone to slowly stop going out. A sore knee, bad weather, or simple habit can turn the front door into a barrier instead of a bridge. But research in the U.S. consistently shows that exposure to natural light lifts mood, and even brief time outdoors can support better mental and physical health. Access to open air, greenery, and sunlight has been linked with longer life expectancy and a stronger sense of connection. For me, opening the door each morning became a ritual, not a grand gesture, just a quiet reminder that I still belong to the world outside my walls. Step onto the porch. Feel the air. Look at the sky. Watch the leaves move. These tiny actions ground you, reminding you that the world still has room for you, and you still have a place in it. Thing number 4. Avoid saying I'm too old for that. Age is a number. Fear is the fence. I think about Eugene, a man I met online who took up paddleboarding at 78. The first time he went out, he fell off the board so many times he joked the lake probably knew his name. But he kept going, not because it was easy, but because he refused to let that quiet phrase, "I'm too old," become the boundary of his life. American research has shown for years that the brain can continue forming new neural connections well into older age. Neuroplasticity doesn't just belong to the young. It belongs to anyone willing to learn something new. Watching Eugene reminded me of the years I wasted building fences for myself. I used to walk past community classes or art groups and think, not for me, not at this age. The truth was, I was letting fear dress itself up as maturity. Trying something new isn't about proving anything to anyone. It is about waking up a part of yourself that still wants to grow. Maybe it's a painting class, a beginner's Tai Chi group, or just joining a walking club at the park. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to be curious again. Thing number 5. Avoid turning your bedroom into your universe. For walls can protect you or trap you. I've watched many older Americans slowly migrate into their bedrooms without even noticing it. It starts with moving a television inside, then a favorite chair, then a few snacks. Before long, the entire house becomes a backdrop for storage while the bedroom turns into the only lived-in space. I fell into that habit myself after retirement. One afternoon I looked around and realized my home, once full of life and movement, had become a kind of storage museum. Research on physical space and mental health in older adults shows that confined or cluttered environments can raise stress hormones, reduce motivation, and even contribute to feelings of stagnation. A house is meant to be lived in, not abandoned room by room. The solution doesn't require grand renovations. Start small. Have your morning coffee in the kitchen instead of the nightstand. Read by the window where natural light can reach you. Fold laundry in the guest room just to make use of the space again. Reclaim one room at a time, gently and intentionally. The more of your home you inhabit, the more alive you begin to feel within it. Thing number 6. Avoid thinking routine. A good routine isn't a cage, it's an anchor. My Uncle Raymond taught me that lesson long before I understood it. For more than 40 years, he woke up at exactly 6:15 each morning, brushed his teeth, brewed his coffee, and spent 10 minutes watching the birds outside his window. Simple, predictable, almost unremarkable. But he always said those 10 minutes could steady him through anything the day decided to bring. American research supports what he already knew. Consistent routines can reduce anxiety, improve sleep patterns, and help older adults maintain emotional stability. After I retired, I drifted for months, waking up at different times, skipping meals, letting days bleed into each other. Routine felt boring, like proof that my life had become smaller. But when I finally built a small rhythm for myself again, everything changed. Routine wasn't confinement, it was orientation. It reminded me where the day began. If your routine feels stale, you don't need to abandon it. Add micro twists. Switch the flavor of your tea. Play music while you tidy up. Take a different route on your morning walk. A routine with tiny sparks can keep your days grounded without ever feeling dull. Thing number 7. Avoid ignoring your reflection. The mirror doesn't judge you. It reminds you that you exist. I once heard an old friend, Mr. Ari, say the day I stopped looking in the mirror was the day I started to disappear. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. But years later, living alone myself, I realized how easy it is to drift into that quiet kind of disappearing. When no one sees you daily, you start believing it doesn't matter how you look. You skip shaving, pull on the same shirt again, tell yourself no one is paying attention anyway. But that kind of self-neglect often shows up in American research as a common marker of depression among older adults living alone. It's rarely dramatic, it slips in softly. It changes how you feel about your own presence. Looking at your reflection isn't vanity. It's acknowledgement. It's saying I still count. I'm still here. A simple grooming ritual, a clean shirt, brushing your hair, wearing something that makes you feel like yourself again. These small actions restore dignity in ways bigger than they seem. So do one small thing each morning. Dress properly, even if you're not going anywhere. The mirror is there to pull you back into your own life. Thing number 8. Avoid becoming the invisible neighbor. Being unseen is more dangerous than being alone. I learned that the day the power went out on our block. I went door to door checking on folks, and when I knocked on Mr. Howard's door, he opened it with a flashlight in hand and said I was the first person to knock in years. He hadn't been avoiding us. He simply believed no one needed him anymore. And we, in turn, assumed he preferred to be left alone. Years of silence had slowly erased him from the rhythm of the neighborhood. American research often notes that social visibility, even in small doses, helps reduce cognitive decline in older adults. A brief interaction, a greeting, even a shared laugh releases a bit of dopamine, the brain's spark of connection. The cost is small, but the benefit is immense. Every street needs its elders, not its ghosts. You don't need to host barbecues or become the social butterfly of your town. Just wave to the mail carrier. Talk to the neighbor walking their dog. Say hello to someone passing by. These tiny gestures keep you part of the world instead of fading into the background. Being seen, even for a moment, reminds you that you still belong. Thing number 9. Avoid turning memories into a museum. If your memories have no room to breathe, neither do you. I once visited a woman named Maureen who kept her husband's office exactly as he left it years after he passed. Glasses on the desk, jacket on the chair, papers untouched. The whole room felt frozen, as if time didn't dare move. She finally admitted she hadn't stepped inside that room for 2 years because she was afraid changing anything would betray him. But what it truly betrayed was her own life. American studies on grief have shown that prolonged, unprocessed sorrow often pushes people toward isolation and drains motivation. Holding on is human, but holding on too tightly can suffocate the space where new meaning might grow. I've lived long enough to know that keeping treasures is fine, but freezing time is not. Choose a few items that truly matter and let them represent the love you shared. Then repurpose the rest of the space into something new. A painting corner, a reading room, a place for plants, a place for life. Memories are meant to travel with you, not trap you. When you let the room breathe again, you'll find a part of yourself breathing too. Thing number 10. Avoid thinking you've stopped growing. Stopping growth is the beginning of disappearing. One of the most remarkable people I've known was Clarence, who started learning French at 82 just so he could surprise his daughter-in-law at Christmas dinner. He never became fluent, but the effort lit him up in a way nothing else had for years. Then there was Eileen, who picked up an iPad at 77 and began drawing digital cartoons like a kid discovering crayons for the first time. Watching them reminded me that growth has nothing to do with youth. It has everything to do with willingness. Research in the United States has shown that the aging brain continues forming new neural pathways when it is challenged, stimulated, or exposed to unfamiliar tasks. In other words, learning still changes the brain, whether you're 25 or 85. I've felt it myself. The days when I try something new, even if I stumble through it, feel noticeably brighter. You don't need a grand mission. Set one small learning goal each week. A new recipe, a new word, a new route on your walk, a simple class at the community center. Growth keeps the soul awake. And as long as you're still learning, you're still very much alive in this world. You're not done yet, unless you decide you are. After walking through these 10 quiet traps of living alone, a pattern becomes clear. It's never the big, dramatic moments that pull life away from us. It's the small things. The skipped meal, the door that stays shut, the TV that fills the silence a little too easily, the room we no longer enter, the reflection we stop acknowledging. But living alone doesn't mean living less. If anything, it means choosing more intentionally what kind of life you want to hold on to. American research keeps pointing to the same truth. Staying active, staying visible, and staying curious all support longer, healthier aging. And these aren't medical tasks or complicated programs. They're small acts of self-respect that keep the spirit awake. You deserve a life that still expands, still surprises you, still carries your name with dignity. The world may have grown quieter around you, but that doesn't mean your part in it has ended. There's always another corner of your home to reclaim, another neighbor to greet, another new skill to try, another version of yourself waiting to be lived. So let me ask you, friend, as gently and honestly as I can, what is one quiet promise you'll make to yourself today?